Hey, welcome. So glad you're joining us for the Health, Hormones, and Chocolate event. I'm going to share a little bit about hormones, and then I'm going to share my story and then explain how I have helped our whole family's hormones feel better. So, here's the thing, a lot of times with hormone balance, you have inflammation. It causes things like autoimmune stuff, like thyroid. Inflammation like that can cause brain fog, mood swings. A lot of it is imbalanced blood sugar. But here's the thing, omegas are so powerful. You have omega 3s, which actually you need more of those than you need of omega 6s. And a lot of times in our Western diet, we do not have enough of the omegas, even close. What we do is we have the the oils like canola oils and chips and then baking. And what happens is when we're deficient in those good, rich omegas that we need, now I'm talking about like fried oils that are bad oils, but the rich, whether it's fish oil or a plant-based that is pure and has been extracted well and cleanly, those omegas are very nourishing to our body and actually huge for brain function, development, and protection over our nerves, the brain, the connections, the synapses. So knowing that we're deficient in it and that we need more is really key. So, and a lot of times hormones get hit because we have those deficiencies in the omegas. We have deficiencies in vitamins and minerals, and it tips the scale into inflammation. And so then what happens is we have everyday toxins that we're dealing with from air, water, food, medications. Stress is very toxic to the body, and your body can't differentiate between good or bad stress. That's the interesting part. And so what happens is when those toxins get greater than the body's ability to get rid of them, they end up being put into fat. That's what the body does to protect our vital organs, which is great, and I appreciate that they do that. That's why you can have a skinny person, but they might have a lot of visceral fat on the inside around their organs. And that's where the danger comes in. And this happens for both adults and kids. And so this is one sign that toxin overload is leaky gut and a couple other things going on. And so changes in hormone also cause inflammation. So when the hormones get off and the inflammation response happens, this initiates immune responses, but not the healthy kind. So what we want to do with our diet, our supplementation, and using exercise, we're using all of those to balance our hormones and help move it forward. And listen, constant stress creates, it's called, I'm going to read this so I get it right, hyperinsulinemic. Okay, so it's really messing up the body's ability to regulate insulin correctly and well, and that involves a bunch of different organs and processes. Your gut is your biggest endocrine organ, and because it's your biggest endocrine organ, it also gets hit the worst by stress. Anyone experienced stress in the past 2 years? Hello, I have. And so you have that. And when I talked about toxin levels, I mean, it even includes endocrine disruptors like plastics, air fresheners, cleaners, deodorants, toothpaste, lotions, toxins in the water. That's just the beginning of it. And then your body's ability to process it out, which most of us don't have the adequate nutrition to handle most of that. And so you have high levels of hormone, which produce cortisol, which causes inflammation. Now, I want you to look at something real quick because you have something that goes from, you have cortisol release. Let's say you're stressed. So what do? You eat sugar because sugar is a quick cortisol dropper. And so when the cortisol drops, then the insulin spikes from the sugar, makes you feel good. But then what happens is it drops real low, lower than it should, and cortisol gets released to offset that massive drop. And then what happens? You want to eat sugar, insulin goes up, drops, cortisol gets released. Do you see that cycle? Do you see where I'm going? So we have to understand that cycle. That's why we crave sugar. That's why we're having trouble really navigating what do we put in our mouth, what do we use. But here we have some wonderful tools. And why do we want something sweet? Why do we crave sodas and chocolate? Why do we have terrible PMS for us ladies? And this is where the gut and hormones are very tied. I mentioned about it being an endocrine organ. When you feel full, you have a hormone called leptin. And so if that hormone or any other get out of whack, end up having too much of the bad and not enough of the good in your gut of the bacteria. And so what happens, it does not produce the right enzymes to break down the food, and hence you aren't feeling full. And there's a couple other factors going into that as well. So sugar actually, because it spikes insulin, it helps create that feeling full initiating process. But that's not really what your body needs. What it needs is the proper digestion happening to be able to have that leptin be released at the proper time. Instead of you overeating, or maybe you don't feel good when you eat and so you don't eat enough. Huge gut response. So, why do we crave sugar when we are stressed? Well, one, it lowers cortisol quickly, like I mentioned, but it also helps us feel good in the brain. And so we have to recognize that that's a twofold process. You're going to have a mental side with the sugar, but you're also going to have, and it can include salt too, because chips and things like that actually get converted into glucose into the bloodstream in French fries. And there are those terrible oils that are fried that are now stealing our omegas. Do you get what I'm putting down? All right, so there are natural plant-based products that you can use as a tool, not just for you, but for the whole family. So part of our story is that we started because my husband had terrible IBS. We had tried a lot of Western, a lot of natural, and really this is the first thing that gave him back his quality of life and has been an incredible tool, especially as a husband providing incredible amounts of stress that he has dealt with, as we all do, but typically in specific job situations he's been in. And so it's been a huge blessing having these to be able mitigate those stressful effects. Now for me, it helped with hormones, inflammation, brain fog. I joke my tired was tired. Y'all. But everyone was like, you're a mom, it's normal to be tired. I was like, this is not like normal tired. But I look back and I see that my whole life I was tired, but I was also constipated. And so I'm reabsorbing toxins all day long and my body is just running. So moody, hangry, poor sleep is huge signs of imbalanced blood sugar. And guess what? Yeast in our gut, it's called Candida. Its food source is sugar. And so that affects your gut-brain axis. All right, so our story is that, and then I forgot my kids. It helped my oldest with food allergies, seasonal allergies. I helped our whole family recover from mold. It helped my 4-month at the time. She had colic. It helped get rid of that. She's been on Plexus her whole life and is the healthiest out of all of us. She's doing amazing. She's 5 now. And for my oldest, we had our blood work done at 5. Dosed the triplex to her body weight. Fast forward 2 years, took her in. The pediatrician said her blood work was the cleanest she'd seen in her 20 years of practice. What in the world were we doing? And so that has really freed up my child to be able to be free and not fearful when it comes to food, which is amazing. I mean, just amazing, that freedom. So that has helped our family hugely. And at the beginning, my husband had been bedridden for 3 months with his IBS. So I started sharing right away because I said, you know what? Everyone can benefit from gut health as I started to learn how much the world impacts us daily. Fast forward 3 years, I hit the first 6-figure rank in the company right as my husband's 2 jobs disappear, thank you, COVID, and other circumstances. And so it became our main income. We had been on food stamps and Medicaid when we first started. We didn't have to look at going back into that. And we've been able to look at increasing our income and dreaming bigger and helping others do the same. So it has really been such a blessing physically and financially for our family. Freedom all around. And so let me dig in a little bit about how this works and how the system that we used. So I mentioned the imbalanced blood sugar. What it looks like is headaches after eating sugar, not feeling full when eating, moody, brain fog, afternoon crashes, that craving sugar, maybe craving salt, maybe you feel stressed and you have a hard time coming down. Listen, 1 teaspoon of sugar suppresses the immune system up to 8 hours. Do we really want to be doing that to our bodies? So this is why I love what's called the pink drink, which is also known as Slim. It really should be called Balance because that's what it does for your body. It balances your master hormone and helps increase the master antioxidant glutathione, which is great because there's a lot of things that deplete glutathione. And if we're deficient in that, our immune system is not functioning as well as it should. And then you have where it helps because it's the master hormone. Guess what it's helping with? Cortisol, progesterone, testosterone, all those things are coming into play. And so, it also has a prebiotic that helps feed the gut bacteria up to 200 times. And the difference is this prebiotic fiber does not feed the bad bacteria as well. If you eat something like kimchi or sauerkraut, that is feeding both the good and the bad, which is fine. But if you have too much bad and not enough good, then that is going to cause some issues down the line because you're feeding both. So this specifically targets that. And so what you see is you have no afternoon crashes, reduce in cravings, mental clarity, more energy, better sleep. And it really has been such a blessing. So I talked about mineral like deficiencies. Here's an interesting fact. For 1 molecule of sugar, it requires 54 molecules of magnesium, and 90% of the population is deficient in magnesium and controls 300 enzyme processes, including immune function, inflammation process, histamine, so many more things, okay? So the interesting part about magnesium is you need so many other essential minerals when your immune system is revved up, you're fighting colds. Stress has a high magnesium requirement that your body needs to handle stress. And guess which organ requires the most magnesium? Your heart. So if you have any heart issues, guess what? If you're stressed and you're having heart issues, guess what's happening? You're very, very low in your essential vitamins and minerals. And so it's really important to get those two things up, and you'll see it help. Like, it can help with fibs, irregular heartbeats, and things like that. And drinking water. Dehydration is a huge thing because guess what minerals need to attach to travel through the body to get where they need to go? Water! So what we use is an oxygenated form of magnesium, but it's not just a regular magnesium. It also has alkalining properties for the body. It has extra O2 that gets released into the bloodstream to do a cleansing effect to get out viruses, bacteria, fungi, aids in digestion. It cleanses on a cellular level. So you see things like less muscle cramps, even in growing pains with kids, which is awesome. Better resilience to stress, better resilience when you're fighting something off. Better sleep, improved immune function, which I mentioned, GI mobility, and that alkalining the body, which is very healing and restorative. This is not a colon cleanse. This is a gentle cleanse on a cellular level. And so we have that piece, and it's helping our gut. It's helping our hormones. I mean, just look up magnesium and hormones, and it is huge how many of those processes in balancing your hormones requires magnesium. So let's talk about gut health, because everyone's born with a little bit of yeast. You remember I mentioned that? And that yeast has a shell as hard as a cockroach. That is really tough because you need enzymes and antifungal to break the outer shell of that cockroach. That is basically when it gets too much, it coats the lining of your intestines and starts digesting it and poking microscopic holes, which means leaky gut is happening. Everyone exhibits leaky gut differently. It could be headaches, it could be skin rashes, it could be autoimmune, it could be lower thyroid function, it could be swelling, it could be change actually in vision and different things like that. Because your gut is basically the intake system for all your nutrition. And so making sure it is balanced and working well is very crucial. So we have that candida and other bad bacteria that work alongside it that put off neurotoxins. One main neurotoxin that it puts off blocks B6. If you look up B6, it's really important for mental health, really important, and important for your skin, hair, and nails. Very, very important. So it's blocking that and creating a nutritional deficiency already. And so we need to get rid of that bad guy and get the good guys in. And so the probiotic we use, which is called ProBio5, it has that enzyme and antifungal that crack that outer shell, kill it off, and move it out. Guess what? The BioCleanse comes in and helps initiate the immune system, has anti-inflammatory functions, it's help alkalizing, and it is also, the probiotic has only anti-inflammatory strands. Not all probiotics have anti-inflammatory strands. Most of the time they have inflammatory and anti-inflammatory. But if you are trying to heal the gut, right now we need to reduce that inflammation and reduce any chronic stress, even in the GI tract. And so that is very calming and powerful. And it is dehydrated. So it becomes alive. It's in its live state, gets released from the capsule into your GI tract, typically into the small intestines. And then it is known, a lot of strands in it, to make it all the way to the colon, which does not happen often. And it's very, very important for overall health because there's a lot that goes on in the colon. All right, so here's an interesting part with estrogen. Let's talk about this. And this can actually go with men, women, and kids. Whether you recycle estrogen, you have your cellular processes that will turn it off and send it to waste into your GI tract. If you have too much bad bacteria, it's like this little light bulb comes through and it's turned off. And then you know what that bad bacteria does? It flips the light back on and it gets sucked back into your body and recycled. Good bacteria does not turn that estrogen on. It recognizes and goes, all right, please go out to waste, and it gets excreted out to waste. So if you have hormone imbalance, your gut is very important in having that more good than bad, because those things are not trying to help you. And so you have your prebiotics, which are food for the good bacteria. You have your probiotic getting the good and the bad out. You have your magnesium that is supporting all the hormone processes and cleansing on a cellular level. And this is what's called the triplex. It's a gut health system, and it is amazing. And remember I mentioned those nutritional gaps. You have, what impacts that is diet, medication, food sources, stress. Also something called the MTHFR gene, which affects 60% of the population, and most of them don't know about it. And so we have something called X Factor Plus. It is an aloe-based vitamin, but it has 19 essential minerals. Remember I mentioned those essential minerals right here. They're fully chelated, which means bioavailable. So it's a bioavailable vitamin, and this supports all your major organs' needs and requirements. And everyone needs different things that different requirements depending on what season you are. Listen, this is not a quick fix. This is not going to happen in 30, 60, 90 days. Hormone balance takes 1 to 2 years. A lot of times you'll see things change within 6 months, then you'll see a bigger change at a year, and a lot of times you'll see 18 months to 2 years. The reason is because you are getting so many processes to come into balance, and you're having to navigate several things. One, your circumstances. If you are in stressful circumstances, you might not be 6 months from now. And so the nutritional requirements are different for being in a stressful state versus a resting state. Let's say you're going through a hormone change, menopause. I mean, even kids go through hormone changes at 8, 12, 6, there's all that going on. And then you have hormone changes as you progress through life. Supporting those processes and getting the right nutrients and making sure you are not deficient is huge, because here's what happens with balanced blood sugar, your master hormone. If it's going like this, up and down, do you see how big and crazy those waves get? We want to create a nice, even wave where you're not crashing, you're having good sustained energy, and it is different for every single person depending on their circumstances, their genetic makeup, what their gut health is, how much antibiotics they've had. It takes 1 year to recover from one round of antibiotics. And so our bodies work in 90-day cycles to help heal themselves. And listen, God designed us well to take the nutrition, the plants, the things he put in the earth, to plug it in to his design to help the healing process within us be initiated and start to heal. And if you're working with the deficiency, which is like down here, do you think taking just the minimum requirement is going to work? No, you're going to have to take more than that's required to get it back up to stable, normal ranges. And that's okay. And that's normal when you work within natural healing. And I want you to think about that 90 days. You're going to have many 90 days compound on themselves, because up to this point, we've had many 90 days compounding in the negative side. So we're going to have to go back up that hill so we can start moving that train. And think of the seasons of the earth. You have summer, winter, spring, fall. All those seasons look different because different things are interacting. But there is growth, there is different growth processes that are happening during all those seasons, and we are not a whole lot different. But we think in our minds that we should just be like staying the same and nothing ever changes. But we're organic, and the beautiful thing is we have amazing tools to help support in a long-term health process with that. And so no, if you are in any natural healing journey, look at that 90 days. And then on that 4th month, because that's 3 months, on that 4th month, you're really going to reap what you've been sowing. And then you can adjust on that 4th month. And then again for the next 3 months, and then you adjust on that 4th month. And it is amazing. I mean, just amazing what our bodies can do. So our tools that we use are incredible tools backed by science. It requires consistency and time. And what I love is that God designed us to heal. God designed our bodies to be able to heal. You have certain detox processes in us already built to help get bad stuff out and get the good stuff in. But the thing is, we have to get them in at the right levels and what we need. So what would it look like a year or two from now if you took ownership in your health and invested and allowed those 90 cycle days to compound? Can you see that? Can you visualize that? And so also what I love is that we have an incredible community of so many wise men and women that want to see other people just flourish. I started knowing nothing about gut health except that gut health was good for you. So 5 years in, I've learned a lot. I have been intentional in learning what me and my family have needed, and it has helped us thrive. So I'm so glad you joined us. Please get back with the person who invited you tonight and tell them one thing you learned. And I hope this blessed you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.